All right, time for another draftphysics.com debate physics, right? .com also, but people interpret the word debate physics into, just make up some sort of psychobabble bullshit accusations about agendas and not admitting something and hidden agendas or some other kind of crapola instead of actually arguing the arguments, which are arguments defining why there's a flaw in what you're arguing, that it isn't the truth, it doesn't consistent, it doesn't get right answers, it's bullshit. And instead of defending the bullshit with some sort of evidence or reasoning, they just lie. So, Piro, the compulsive liar, bullshitter, full of shitter, you know, can't say enough about what a weaselly human being he is, has again commented irrelevantly on a video, okay, with just more junk. So the simple point was made is that you can do an experiment. So we'll do the drawing first, yeah. All right, so the video simply pointed this out, okay? They say there's this law of conservation, so you have a closed system, okay? And that's going to be, what you're analyzing. And the simple argument is is that you can put, the fact is the experimental evidence sort of just completely demonstrates without any kind of change in anything that you can have this MV, a momentum of a fixed quantity in an object, and I can put it into this closed system and I can have it come out, okay, as a different arrangement, okay? So this is a one mass moving one velocity. This is going to be a four mass total moving one half that velocity. And so I've obviously changed the momentum. I've got 200 momentum coming out. So I made an experiment. You could have the arrow just come out this way. Direction is irrelevant. That was the point of the demonstration, was that direction doesn't mean anything. Because a device as simple as a pendulum proves you can change the direction without losing superficial amounts of energy. So you can change direction without it costing you anything at all. And so the simple fact is I can change a collision into two objects moving in the same direction without applying any more energy into the environment. Nothing new goes in. And I get this, change in the direction. So I can make it go either way. I can put energy in this way and I can make it come out the opposite way, or I can make it come out the way it was going. And clearly I'm not conserving momentum is the argument. So when they talk about, when Professor Lewin says nature can't finagle momentum, clearly that's a silly statement. That's all I want them to accept, is that yes, okay, that is not a complete statement in physics. It's not a useful terminology, because the fact is it's really easy to make changes to momentum, make free momentum. To go from 100 momentums to 200 momentums doesn't require anything but a pendulum. You don't have to add any energy. So that was the argument made in the video. He's nowhere near the argument. He's not going to talk about the argument. He's just going to pretend all the arguments aren't made and declare victory. And it's just such bullshit. So he says, when you call me an alcoholic. So I did exactly what you did, okay? You're saying that my agenda is something other than a logical disconnect, that I'm somehow not seeing abundance of evidence on one side and a lack of evidence on the other side, and saying, yes, I'm going to doubt what you're saying because it doesn't fit the evidential record. It's not established as a truth. And you're implying that I have some agenda, some resistance to belief. And to me, it's as offensive as some religious kook saying, oh, you haven't tried to talk to God, or some kind of horse shit like that. Some bullshit stating that somehow the person hasn't fairly treated the religious theory as a theory. Of course. And it's just bullshit. So I just returned your bullshit and just picked on the easy factor to pick on, which is the fact is that you are a reckless, sloppy jackass of a human being, and you demonstrate it, okay? You publicly do it, And so it's a fair challenge to you because you do it right there in public. All I hear is your fear. So obviously, what's that? So it's just some sort of, gaslighting, some sort of, let's see if I can trigger you by making a counter accusation. Well, I'll just call you ballless, okay? So you have no balls, okay? Yeah, you're the one who's got the insecurity problem and is on the defensive here. And so he says, you're afraid. And no, you're obviously the one afraid to make videos, to make challenging arguments. You can't draw it. You can't explain why. It's perfectly rational to say conservation of momentum is a law, when clearly it's not a law. Your own physics says it isn't. You can make free momentum all you want. It's really easy to do. All you need is a pendulum. You can make lots of free momentum. So why do you think it's some sort of law? You liars. Okay, clearly your physics is junk. All right. I have dismantled your system. So, where's the evidence? It was just such an outrageous statement to make. He has done nothing. He said per second. That's what he said. And I said, as my counter argument, well, nobody says I'm going 60 miles an hour per hour. Nobody does that because it would be stupid, redundant, useless. And so he says he has per second math. And I'm saying, well, there's no such thing as per second. There's just per second, the end. You're all done creating your ratio. So anyway, he hasn't done anything else. There's no counter-argument. He's counter-argued nothing. He's drawn nothing. He's explained nothing. All right. Your system makes free energy possible. So again, such an idiotic notion. So there's no example where you could show me where actually conserving momentum makes free energy. It's not possible for it to make free energy. All right. So, you don't have any example of it. The ballistic pendulum proves the bullet doesn't have the fake kinetic energy you think it has. So it's not even an issue. The lever proves the bullet doesn't have it because an ideal lever can make, the speeding bullet out of the recoiling gun. It can take the 1,000 atoms moving 1 mile an hour and convert it into the 1 atom moving 1,000 miles an hour. And that as a fact, that the ideal lever would do that. If we could just construct the ideal lever, it would show that those two physical events, the bullet and the gun recoil, are the same amount of energy. So anyway, liar. You're scared. He does it again. Scared of what? I'm frustrated that you people are such lying scum. I mean, I'm really surprised just how low you'll go, just how vacuous your arguments are. You're just worse than religious kooks. Religious kooks try to rationalize what they're saying. They try to make up some story that, well, God wanted it that way because it would teach us a lesson. God didn't tell us about bacteria because he wanted us to do some of the hard work and learn how hard it is to know the truth, and that the truth is difficult and unpleasant. And he wanted us to they can make up some sort of crap. You're not making up anything here. You're just declaring that you've made an argument that doesn't fucking exist, that can't be put into an articulatable example of the counter argument, which doesn't fucking exist. All right, your system has cracked. So it just gets better and better. And so it answers more and more questions. It shows how obviously misguided and how religious science was. How all of these decisions were made on garbage, just junk evidence. And it was all about what they wanted to be true, not about what is true. Not what the evidence was showing. You're way ahead, cart way ahead of the horses. Let's see, you don't have to give in and use the real physics we prefer. So again, he calls it the real physics, and it's too weak to make a counter argument. And even when you're willing to pay people thousands of dollars to debunk you, or make fun of what you're saying, they won't do it. And but he's sure he has the real physics that has no evidence. But you have to admit yours is broken. So again, broken by what? What fact breaks it? What experiment breaks it? What truth breaks it? So show me, please. I'm really desperate to know. Okay, you're saying you've got this evidence. Show it to me. What, an Ian Gosling experiment? Where's your evidence? Where do you have any fucking evidence? You can't cite a single experiment and say, see, this one really proves it. So show me the piece of evidence. I remember when you did do that, when you wanted to counter-argue the wave theory, this asshole, linked to a video where they deliberately put noise into the waves, right? They agitated the waves at such a high frequency that all the water molecules became independent. And so all the waves were going in all kinds of directions, all kinds of noise. And then said, look, noise out. Noise in, noise out. I mean, just to try to prove that somehow single slits make interference patterns when they don't. Single slits in water do not make interference patterns. Just a fact. But he didn't like that fact, so he had to cheat that fact. So we've seen your record. We see what you're about. Fake evidence. All right, not to us. You'll never admit it out loud, but to yourself. So that's your statement. So, why don't you just get off the bottle for a week or two, buddy? I mean, see, this kind of, like I said, there's no counter argument to somebody who's making up crap, right? I mean, I go to all this trouble to make all these videos explaining exactly what I'm seeing and why I find what you're saying to be ludicrous and silly. And you can't make a counter argument to it. You can't show where the drawing is wrong. So go ahead and explain how it is conservation of momentum when in that pendulum example where I can clearly just easily store the energy, release it at a different moment, and I have twice as much momentum moving in the same direction. That there is no conservation of momentum. Show how there is when there clearly isn't. All right, and again, I made the lever argument. It's clear argument, and you type this kind of mush. You didn't make a counter argument to how levers work. You didn't explain how, no, the half mass only moves 1.4 the velocity. No, I mean, it physically can't move anything other than twice the velocity. It's a physical fact. And you're just pretending that physical fact isn't important, and it's, critically important. I already see it in your desperate reply to Dispar. And what was desperate about it exactly? Sorry, I don't understand that statement even. So in the video, I showed the insane distortion, okay? I mean, the ball goes from being this big, it swings and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger as it's going slower and slower, right? So as the marble's going slower, it's very clear when it's going its fastest. It's crystal clear. When it's going its slowest, it's 3 times as big and all blurry. And that is a desperate reply. For me to say, well, this is obviously there's some kind of shenanigans, right? I mean, you can't, I've never even seen a video do that before. I've never even seen anything like that before. So I can't even compare it to something that's so bizarre. And I even stated right in the video, I said, how do you explain this? I mean, I'm you really would go to a conference and submit that as evidence with this glaring bizarreness in it and say, look, I'm establishing a truth with this experiment that has this insane artifact in it. I mean, it's just a bizarre artifact. And we're supposed to trust that evidence. I mean, and he calls that desperate. You're just like, what the fuck? I mean, too silly. If I presented evidence with an artifact that glaring in it, you'd be right on it saying, you're cheating, you're fucking up, you're doing the experiment wrong. You're just such a hypocrite. I mean, the hypocrisy, the duplicity of this human being is such a duplicitous hypocrite. I mean, what an amazing pile of scum. I mean, I just can't imagine that I interacted with this fucker not realizing what a scumbag he is. What a lying scumbag. All right, so back to the drawing board. Yeah, I wish you would start with a drawing board, and then maybe you could understand something about a mechanical universe that has to have mechanical things in it that do things. Things you actually have to draw, like a Higgs boson or something. You actually have to explain what the fuck the thing is. If you're going to give the thing a name, and you're going to call the thing a something, you have to be able to, in some way, define its properties and its character and its capacities. like a model of fish. So he says, maybe go back to the flock of fish model. So this is exactly the same model I'm still at. I've used it just the other day. I used it again as an analogy that, fish can be going in all directions and the whole system doesn't move at all because all the fish are countering each other's motion. Or all the fish can do exactly the same amount of work, the same amount of energy expended, and the whole thing moves in a direction rapidly. And there's no difference in the energy. So you have to understand that energy can be subtle and hidden. That's the part you don't understand, that it's stored inside of objects as motion back and forth or motion in a circle. And that those motions are just as real as flying south for the winter. It's just as much work to do all those motions, but they don't have any visual outcome. They don't produce a result that looks like anything happened, anything changed. And you're just too fucking ignorant to understand that, or maybe just too, wallowed in your drunken psychosis. I mean, obviously, the fact is, people who drink too much can't handle complex questions. They can handle simple things like, okay, yeah, I could walk a straight line. I could do it, but give them a complex task, multiply some numbers or something, and they're not gonna do so well on that test. Yeah, so he can't handle the fact that physics is about a model, and it's about it being consistent, the pieces matching and fitting with each other. It's like putting a puzzle together, and he's just a drunk, so he just pounds them. He just forces it to fit because he wants to make it look like Piero is a good person when it's really Piero is a scummy, reckless, stupid, idiotic slob who couldn't give a fuck about doing anything honest or real. Yeah. All right. So enough of that. So yeah, that's it. That's the comment. So, I should just go back to blocking him, because this is all he wants to do is argue about arguing. He doesn't want to make actual arguments that have something to do with the actual subjects of the videos. And instead, he wants to just throw mud and slander and waste my fucking goddamn time. And because he's a troll. That's all he is. An ignorant, hypocritical, duplicitous troll. Get what you deserve, fucker. You've already gotten a big hunk of it, and it didn't teach you anything. You haven't learned anything in your pathetically stupid, failed life. And you're just demonstrating you still haven't learned anything. Alright, so fuck you. Get what you deserve, you fucking piece of shit. And quit wasting my time with your drivel. Make a physics argument or fuck off. Ugh.